Welcome to this new session, which is essentially a keynote address on the theme, a vision for international collaboration in higher education, building a better and fairer world. We have with us two distinguished institution builders, outstanding scholars, academics, as well as administrators who have been heading organizations which have also contributed quite significantly towards promotion of internationalization. We have with us Dr. Joanna Newman, who is the Chief Executive and Secretary General of the Association of Commonwealth Universities, United Kingdom. We also have with us Professor Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Secretary General of the Association of Indian Universities. Let me quickly introduce both the speakers to our audience. Dr. Joanna Newman is, as I mentioned earlier, Chief Executive and Secretary General of the ACU. She joined the ACU in April 2017 and is responsible for fostering and promoting the aims of the ACU as defined by its membership in developing inter-Commonwealth relations in the field of higher education. Before joining ACU, Joanna was the Vice Principal International at King's College London, where she was responsible for all international matters for the entire university. In previous positions, Joanna represented the UK higher education sector as Director of the UK Higher Education International Unit, now known as Universities UK International, where she negotiated the UK's role in Brazil's Science Without Borders mobility scheme, launched the Higher Education Global, and initiated a number of international partnerships on behalf of the UK higher education sector. Before this, she was head of the higher education at the British Library, where she commissioned the Google Generation Report and was responsible for introducing researchers to one of the world's greatest research libraries. Joanna is a senior research fellow in the history faculty at King's College and an honorary research fellow at the University of Southampton, and has taught history at University College London and the University of Warwick. In 2014, she was honored as a member of the Order of the British Empire, MBE, in recognition of her work towards promoting British higher education internationally. We have with us Professor Dr. Pankaj Mittal, who is the Secretary of the Association of Indian Universities and is the second woman Secretary General of the ACU in its 96 years of existence. Prior to joining AIU, she has been serving the higher education sector, especially university education, for more than 3 decades at the apex regulator of higher education, the University Grants Commission of India. Dr. Mittal is a Fulbright scholar and has been a topper in her master's and PhD degree in agricultural statistics from IARI. She has a wide-ranging experience of more than 3 decades in higher education, in policy, planning, and management of higher education. She's also a National Commissioner for Rangers of Bharat Scouts and Guides. Dr. Mittal earlier served as the first regular Vice Chancellor of Bhagat Phool Singh Mahila Vishwavidyalaya, Kanpur, as the first rural women university of North India in 2008, at a young age of 44 years, to undertake an onerous task of development of a tiny Gurukul into an institution of reputation. I'm grateful to both Dr. Joanna Newman and Dr. Mittal for gracing this occasion and being part of the keynote address. Now I invite Dr. Joanna Newman to deliver the keynote address.
It is my great pleasure to be delivering the keynote address today at the World Universities Summit on Universities of the Future, Building Institutional Resilience, Social Responsibility and Community Impact, organised by O.P. Jindal Global University, alongside Vice-Chancellor Professor Raj Kumar and Dr. Pankaj Mittal, Secretary General of the Association of Indian Universities. I've had the great pleasure of knowing Professor Raj Kumar for several years now, and continue to remain grateful to him for chairing the Association of Commonwealth Universities East Asia Regional Committee, which comprises university leaders from India, Malaysia and Hong Kong, and is helping shape our priorities in the region. I have enjoyed several visits to JGU's beautiful campus outside Delhi, where I've had an opportunity to spend some really memorable times engaging with faculty and students, both during my time as Vice President International at King's and also in my current role at the Association of Commonwealth Universities. As the Indian government's new national education policy has begun to take shape, one can already see O.P. Jindal Global University, with its stellar reputation in law, the humanities and a range of other areas, playing a leading role in further shaping the nation's higher education ecosystem, especially in areas of internationalization and international collaboration. Prior to the pandemic, in February 2020, my colleagues brought a group of 40 students from 15 different Commonwealth countries to OP Jindal Global as part of the Commonwealth Futures series, which saw workshops on the theme of social cohesion, organised in the UK, India and South Africa. Locations chosen to mark the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, whose teachings and principles inspired the development of the Commonwealth Futures series, and indeed so much of our work at the ACU. The India workshop, hosted by JGU, was designed and delivered in collaboration with the International Institute for Higher Education Research and Capacity Building at JGU, under the able stewardship of its director, Professor Raj Kumar, and its deputy director, Dr. Mosumi Mukherjee, who is also a member of the steering committee of the ACU's supporting research community. It is a pleasure to be joined today by Dr. Pankaj Mittal, who is a respected colleague and someone with whom I enjoy a great bond. Our organisations enjoy historic ties going back several years. Not only do we share several members, but we also have a shared vision for the future of higher education in India and across the Commonwealth. Dr. Mittal has been an active contributor to the ACU's HR and HE community and is a really important and valued collaborator in all our work. I should highlight that the Association of Commonwealth Universities is a network of over 500 member universities in more than 50 countries, and India has always been a strong partner and supporter. Over 150 of our members are based in India, as were 5 of our founding members back in 1913, and 3 members of our governing council are vice-chancellors of leading Indian universities. We've heard some fascinating comments and opinions over the course of the day from leading scholars and academicians, many of whom are members and close collaborators of the ACU. As an organisation dedicated to improving lives through education, it is indeed an honour to be involved with efforts such as this conference, which draw attention to a range of diverse and pertinent themes, ranging from the role of technology in strengthening universities of the future to strategic collaboration among universities in times of uncertainty, which Aditya Malkani, our Asia representative, will be speaking on tomorrow. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to address you all on a topic that is an essential part of any discussion about universities of the future, the role of international collaboration in higher education. This is also a topic close to my heart. The ACU's mission to build a better world through higher education and our belief in the transformative power of universities for individuals, communities and nations. All of our work is testimony to this mission. Higher education underpins all forms of economic and social development, from poverty reduction to employability, health to environmental sustainability. None of the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals can be achieved without the knowledge and people that universities produce, and international collaboration here is key. It strengthens the long-term vitality of universities and higher education systems. It helps to create the next generation of leaders and create solutions to the global challenges that we all face. We need international collaboration now more than ever. Throughout this pandemic, researchers all over the world have been simultaneously focused on a single mission, openly sharing data to track and understand how COVID-19 spreads across the globe, identify the short and long-term impacts of the virus, and of course to develop the vaccines which offer the ultimate solution to this crisis. But as we start to think about a post-pandemic future, we must acknowledge that there are other challenges that will continue to test our individual and collective resources and resilience. There is political polarization in a number of countries where the democratic practices of dialogue and debate have been replaced by the rise of suspicion and hate. There is growing economic disparity across the world where the rich get richer and the poor become more dependent. There is gender discrimination and violence, which continues to remain a chronic illness society has been unable to rid itself of. And there is the climate crisis, the most existential threat of all, and one which is already causing widespread disruption and damage. So for universities to play their full part in tackling these challenges, I would like to outline a vision for international collaboration in higher education, one which helps to build a better, fairer world for us all. I'll start with equitable partnerships and collaboration. As the need for the Sustainable Development Goals demonstrates, we live in a hugely unequal world, and addressing inequality is a driver for many projects. We therefore shouldn't be surprised that this inequality is reflected in international higher education partnerships. Well-resourced funders and institutions in the global north have disproportionate power to shape the global research and development agenda. The wealthiest, best equipped universities have a significant advantage in their competitiveness for research funding and for control over the goals and terms of research partnerships. The result is unequal, unfair, and unshared outcomes between partners, and I would argue distorted research findings. International partnerships should be about much more than the extractive research collaborations and student recruitment. We need to focus on the equity of international partnerships and associated funding mechanisms to ensure that they respond to locally contextualised needs and build the capacity of all partners. All universities have something to learn from each other, from indigenous ecological knowledge to cutting-edge technology. To move the world forward, we must acknowledge and share the wealth of expertise that exists right across the globe, not just in the global north, and the extensive and diverse ways of knowing and thinking. The ACU's approach to building partnerships that are equitable, sustainable, and result in shared and equal outcomes for all partners is to focus on strengthening the capacity of our member universities for the long term. We believe that there should be a tangible and lasting change as a result of partnerships, whether it is in split-site PhDs, in the area of teaching and pedagogy, in research, in student and faculty exchange, or in collaborative education. Following a high-level meeting of research sector fellows from across Africa and the UK earlier this year, the ACU and the African Research Universities Alliance and the UK Research and Innovation published a joint communiqué outlining a vision for strengthening UK-African research partnerships. Through this communiqué, we're calling for action to build individual and institutional capacity, create a supportive environment for researchers to thrive and grow, coordinate and align funding programmes, and maximise research impact by enhancing networks and partnerships beyond academia. The communiqué is very much aligned to the ACU's own approach to the programme partnership. As one example, through the Partnership for Enhanced and Blended Learning, PEBBLE, the ACU has been working with 24 universities across 4 countries in East Africa to scale up blended learning and co-create locally relevant online teaching modules, supported by the online expertise of learning expertise of global partners. Thanks to this project, which is part of the UK aid-funded SPHERE programme, international collaboration has combined with local delivery to dramatically scale up access to quality content. More than 13,000 students across Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda and Tanzania are studying PEBBLE modules, and we are actively working with Commonwealth governments and partners to expand the PEBBLE model to new regions, including India. The ACU also promotes knowledge sharing and knowledge democracy through our university networks and communities of practice in climate resilience, peace and reconciliation, higher education and the SDGs, supporting research and human resources in higher education. These networks connect nearly 2,000 colleagues across our membership, providing platforms for staff and students from universities around the Commonwealth to share ideas and best practice and build partnerships. To take one example, our Commonwealth Peace and Reconciliation Network provides an inter-university framework for sharing knowledge and experience on ways to address historical injustice and conflict in post-colonial societies. We saw this in practice at our conference last year on the role of the arts in peace and reconciliation, where doctoral fellows from South Africa and Northern Ireland shared their experiences of addressing historical and transgenerational trauma, and it happened to be our first online conference post the beginning of the COVID pandemic, and it worked very well. The conference was planned, as I say, to be held in person, but was moved to this virtual platform because of the pandemic, a familiar story for us all, whether it's an event, a seminar or lecture, or even an entire international study experience. We've seen an acceleration in virtual mobility and exchange over the past year. But this is not only a short-term solution. As a complement, not a replacement for more traditional options, virtual mobility is the second pillar of my vision for the future of international collaboration. Professor Rocky Tuan Vice-Chancellor of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, recently outlined the value of international mobility, whether face-to-face or virtual, as providing educational opportunities, meeting new friends and colleagues, and increasing cultural understanding and experience. Through virtual mobility and exchange, we have the potential to expand access to the benefits of international experience, engaging so many more students than through physical mobility, while providing opportunities for them to develop the skills and competencies they need in a jobs market, where companies are increasingly working in more global and competitive settings. When we are eventually able to travel internationally without the restrictions of a pandemic, high-quality virtual mobility programs can augment in-person immersion experiences and enhance approaches to internationalization at home, leading to a more holistic approach to internationalization. Following on from discussions at the meetings of the ACU's East Asia Regional Committee, we've been pursuing the committee's keen interest in exploring a virtual mobility scheme between universities in the region, and also involving a small number of universities in the UK and the Pacific region. The proposed virtual exchange programme will enable undergraduates from India and the wider East Asia region to study and work with students from different backgrounds and cultures through joint online courses in a range of relevant thematic areas. Through international collaboration online with peers from other universities, under the guidance of academics and trained facilitators, students will develop communication skills, global awareness, empathy, critical and analytical thinking, and intercultural competence. The scheme will extend opportunities for participating universities to find new partnerships or deepen existing ones, while also providing a sustainable student mobility programme that offers equitable access. Following the success of our first ever online student summer school last year in Ghana, we're looking forward to this year's virtual summer school next month in partnership with the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai. Students from across the Commonwealth will explore issues related to urban vulnerability and resilience in a pandemic, engaging with each other through an innovative virtual programme that offers cultural and social as well as academic content. In response to the increased appetite across our members for enhanced student mobility through virtual engagement, the ACU published a virtual mobility toolkit with Durban University of Technology in South Africa, held virtual mobility workshops in partnerships with Coventry University in the UK, and has launched a new grant scheme aimed at supporting our members to deliver a virtual mobility project. These grants will fund events, summer schools, and collaborative student projects between universities in 9 different countries, including India, and all online. Many of the projects funded through these grants are focused on education for sustainable development, ensuring that students have the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development. And this brings me to the third pillar of my vision for the future of international collaboration, creating the change makers of the future. Universities play a vital role in developing generations of new leaders and skilled professionals who will drive social and economic development. International study and research experiences are a crucial element. They help develop culturally agile and internationally connected citizens and create lasting personal, professional, and diplomatic bonds between individuals and nations. One example is Andrew Harvey, a Canadian who received a Queen Elizabeth Commonwealth Scholarship to study at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, where he began a life's work to document the indigenous languages of the Tanzanian Rift Valley. Andrew's fieldwork with the Goa community in Tanzania led to the creation of the first ever dictionary of the language. As a result, Goa children will be able to read in their mother tongue, and Goa traditional knowledge can be stored in books, opening up their history to future generations. I mentioned the climate crisis earlier, and this year's United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP26, is a critical opportunity for nations to take collective action to avert the worst effects of the crisis. In the lead up to COP26, the ACU is working in partnership with the British Council to convene the Commonwealth Futures Climate Research Cohort, a cohort of 26 rising stars in climate and environmental research, each with a deep understanding of communities disproportionately impacted by climate change. The cohort programme brings this group of multidisciplinary researchers together with global experts to develop solutions for climate vulnerable regions, giving these early careers researchers a platform to shape our future. Of course, those who work within universities can be change makers themselves. The ACU Martha Farrell Memorial Fellowships equip ACU member university staff with the training and support needed to implement effective anti-sexual harassment initiatives and drive systemic change on campus. The training draws on the expertise of the Martha Farrell Foundation based in Delhi, which I remember visiting. It was a wonderful visit. Mojibur Rahman, an associate professor at the University of Dhaka in Bangladesh, was motivated to apply for a fellowship to combat ignorance about gender-based violence. Following his training, he spearheaded a campaign to build awareness of sexual harassment on campus, creating online and in-person engagement and discussion spaces with students and teachers. As a result, the number of reported sexual harassment complaints has increased, along with an improved university response. As we start to build forward better, we have a window of opportunity to reimagine the future. By working together across borders, universities can envisage a future that builds on the experience and learnings of the past year, promotes equity of access and outcomes, and supports the next generation of leaders. Through this, we can secure not just the future of our sector, but the greener, healthier, safer future that our nations need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joanna, for that very comprehensive keynote address. I deeply appreciate your reflections and your ideas and your thought-provoking perspectives. I know for sure that the Association of Commonwealth Universities under your leadership has contributed to fostering these ideas across the Commonwealth and in the university spaces in the Commonwealth. Thank you. Now, let me have the pleasure and privilege to invite and welcome Professor Dr. Pankaj Mittal, the Secretary General of the Association of Indian Universities. Under her leadership, AIU has grown from strength to strength and has become one of the most important and indeed a compelling organization that has galvanized intellectual consciousness among academics and universities across the country. Dr. Mittal, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Raj Kumar. First of all, please accept my compliments for holding this mega event, World University Summit, in which we have invited something like more than 100 vice chancellors from 25 plus countries. I mean, organizing such a mega event can only be done by someone called Dr. Raj Kumar, who has also, under his dynamic leadership, grown. I mean, the university has grown under his dynamic leadership into becoming an institution of eminence. So many, many compliments for that. And also thanks for inviting me to give a keynote address on a very, very important theme called a vision for international collaboration in higher education, building a better and fairer world. We all know that the world is facing multidimensional global changes which are impacting the society in many ways, be it economy, be it finance, science, technology, communication, culture, politics, health, or education. So in all the fields, this impact has been seen. And the pace of these changes is further accelerated by the corona pandemic, which is the biggest crisis of the 21st century. The impact is much more felt on the education, both at school as well as higher education. Globally, a large number of dropouts have been seen, especially at the school level, and I'm not even sure how many of those dropouts are ever going to join back in the schools or not. But in higher education, of course, it has been impacted very badly. But higher education institutions have also used this pandemic as an opportunity in terms of, say, enhanced use of technology to promote online learning, as well as to promote internationalization and globalization, which is now more cost effective and time effective due to the pandemic, because now the teachers do not have to move to the countries. I mean, it is mostly online collaborations are there, so it's both cost effective as well as the time effective. So our university graduates are now expected to be global citizens to meet the demands of globalization. Therefore, colleges and universities worldwide are grappling with how best to equip their graduates with the knowledge and skills needed to succeed in the globalized world of 21st century and ensure their own relevance and standing in global higher education community. Around the world, governments are implementing policies to fund study abroad, attract international students, and encourage innovative institutional collaborations. A diverse array of institutions is eager to establish joint and dual degree programs, forge partnerships, and collaborations. Internationalization of higher education has become a priority for universities all over the world as it provides them with educational models that can respond effectively to global issues and challenges. Institutional academic collaboration plays an important role in creation of such models and prepares educational systems to produce students equipped with the skills to work effectively in international environments. You all would appreciate that the challenges that our world faces today are vast, and no single researcher, no single university, and no single nation can achieve a breakthrough solution while working in isolation. The challenges are too complex, and finding solutions alone is difficult, time-consuming, and at times almost impossible. Therefore, we need to work together as a global community of educators, researchers, and influencers. There is a need to collaborate across borders, languages, cultures, and disciplines. Also, cross-discipline cooperation has long been the focus of many higher education institutions to increase the impact of teaching, learning, and research. The increasingly globalized world offers a range of opportunities for university education to grow and flourish at the individual level, institutional level, and the national and global levels. There is a need that international partnerships also bring together a range of partners that impacts all sections of the society at large. Joanna was talking about the unequals there. I mean, all the countries are not at the equal level. So the impact of globalization should be felt in all sections of the society at large. This means broadening the scope of traditional partnerships between universities to include partners in government, industry, NGOs, and community. Universities can create and disseminate knowledge and promote cultural values, which can effectively cultivate further talent through borderless collaborations with government, enterprises, and international organizations. International partnerships between universities are beneficial not only to the staff and students, but to the community as a whole. The pace of internationalization is growing rapidly with unhindered communication channels and inexpensive travel. As a result of the expansion of communication methods and the ease of international travel, academics and researchers are finding it easier than ever to collaborate with their foreign counterparts, making the exchange of academic ideas much simpler to organize. Universities across the world are already seeking to make the most of the possibilities by forming global partnerships and fostering relationships with other institutions. The number of students choosing to study internationally is constantly increasing, and for this reason, it is only logical that universities would want to increase internationalization and attract students from across the globe. International collaborations between universities will also aid in creating effective research environment, as a multidisciplinary research requires the involvement of researchers from different disciplinary backgrounds with various patterns of collaboration. The internationalization of higher education needs a more effective and enabling framework to allow institutions to develop academic programs involving staff and student mobility, collaborative teaching and research, and other forms of linkages. Certainly, the prospects are exciting, but along with all the opportunities come a multitude of challenges, ranging from identifying appropriate models for collaboration, finding partners and negotiating agreements, and for managing cultural differences and expectations, and including evaluation and assessment. In India, we have to still explore the full potential of internationalization. If we go by the number of international students in India, it is only about 46,000 every year, as compared to something like 800,000 to 1 million students who go abroad to study from India who go from India to study in foreign universities. Our international collaborations are still limited to few elite universities, and we have to still find a place in the global rankings in top 100. Therefore, while Indian higher education is relatively new in internationalization, it has recognized that international collaboration can be a major driver of institutional reforms, and the Indian government has initiated policy reforms and is not now pursuing internationalization with greater determination, vigor, and sense of urgency. The much talked about National Education Policy 2020, which was also referred to by Joanna, it recommends a greater organizational autonomy to institutions, enabling them to develop collaborative links with institutions abroad. It has recommended the entry and operation of top 100 foreign institutions in the Indian market. We had been waiting for this for a long time, that when the foreign universities can come establish their campuses in India. Now it is going to be a reality very soon, because the policy has recommended that 100 top foreign universities can come and establish their campuses in India. It will certainly impact the quality of higher education in India and develop collaborative linkages through faculty, student, and research collaborations. The policy has also recommended that the universities need to become more open, integrated, and resilient, and need to promote inclusive environments to address the challenges of this new era. And the NEP, I feel that this is the first time that the NEP has given so much of importance to internationalization of higher education. It recommends that the universities need to break out of their physical boundaries, disciplinary barriers, and technological limitations to make greater contributions to the society through collaborations. The joint degrees, we had been waiting for a long time for joint degrees, means the joint degrees between the Indian universities and the foreign universities. This will soon become a reality, and the UGC, which is the primary stakeholder and regulator of higher education in India, it has already put in public domain the regulations for joint degrees, dual degrees, and twinning programs. So this is going to become a reality, and the NEP has also recommended that the credits can be transferred from foreign universities to Indian universities freely. So far, it was very, very difficult to transfer the credits from foreign university to Indian university, but now the policy has recommended that yes, it could be done. And the very concept of ABC, that is Academic Bank of Credit, which is a novel concept which is being launched by the Indian government. It is a concept in which there will be like a commercial bank, there will be a credit bank in which the students can deposit their credits, and the credits can be earned from multiple universities. And once a threshold number of credits are available, the student can redeem those credits into a degree. And the credits can be earned from Indian universities, from foreign universities. The credits can be earned in a face-to-face mode. They can be earned in a online mode too. So a lot of flexibility has been given to the students, and this will also promote internationalization. The policy has even gone to the finer details by saying that the students, I mean the universities which are hosting international students, must have an international students office to take care of all the grievances of the students at one point. So that is, although small, looks small, but then this is very, very important recommendation which has been given in the policy. The Indian government is also working with a greater vigor on Study in India program, where the many students are attracted to India along with the fellowship. So many students are coming to India through that. And apart from that, AIU, like I am the Secretary General of Association of Indian Universities. It is a 96-year-old body, and at presently, I mean, it is the largest association of universities in the world, in the sense that we have something like 850 universities as our members, and they are all Indian universities, but there are also 17 associate members in AIU. And we are basically working on academics, research, mutual recognition of qualification. So for promoting internationalization of education, AIU has also taken some steps. For example, we do recognize that India is sort of relatively new in internationalization, and the number of universities who are entering into collaborations are very few, elite, very few. But there are many universities who are good and who want to enter into internationalization, into collaborations with other foreign universities, but somehow because In India, it is not so ripe internationalization. They don't know whom to contact to, how to collaborate, what is the process to be followed. Therefore, at AIU, we are trying to establish a network of Indian network of international higher educators. Because so far in India, no such network is existing, which is, I mean, in many countries, such networks are there. NAFSA is a very fine example, OBDIL is a very fine example. But in India, in spite of being a second largest higher education system of the world, we do not have such a network. So AIU is trying to establish an Indian network of international higher educators, in which there will be a lot of resource sharing, knowledge sharing, information sharing, so that anybody who wants to do internationalization is helped by the fellow colleagues who are already good in internationalization. Similarly, in mutual recognition of qualifications, which was a major issue, and the mandate of mutual recognition of qualification is with the AIU as mandated by the Government of India. We were so far giving equivalence on the basis of duration of the degree. For example, in UK, if the master's degree is 1 year, we were saying we will not give equivalence to that master's degree because here the degree is of 2 years duration. But now we are shifting to the credit approach, for which we are doing the credit mapping exercise, so that because the definition of the credits world over is different. In India, the credit entails something, in UK something else, in EU something else, and in USA something else. So we are right now doing the credit mapping exercise. And lastly, to sort of promote collaboration between Indian and foreign universities, we are trying to make a AIU collaboration portal, because many a times the universities who are abroad, they do not know which university to contact in a particular specific area. So we are trying to make a portal in which all the Indian universities, they will indicate that they are good at these particular areas. So it will be easy for the international universities to collaborate with Indian universities. So I'm sure that with the proactive role of the government, the regulatory bodies, AIU, and the universities, the internationalization will be promoted in a big way in India, and it will lead us to building a better and fairer world. Thanks once again to Dr. Raj Kumar for inviting me, and thanks for holding this very, very important summit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mittal, for a fascinating address. And I really think that you have raised a number of issues as we discuss about the future of internationalization. There have been questions which have come about, so I will selectively raise some questions. First of all, there's one question that has bothered many people in the developing world, which is that to what extent internationalization can be promoted at a time and in a context where there is not enough resources for people to access these international opportunities, in the sense that internationalization of the kind which involves student mobility means that people should physically travel and people have to stay in different parts of the world, and that is a kind of a luxury that not everybody can afford. So my question is that to what extent internationalization can be promoted even with lesser resources?
Thank you, Dr. Rajkumar. It's a very, very important question, because that is why the internationalization is more common in, say, richer countries, and at times people say the rankings are very white. So whiteness of the ranking is also being talked about. So when you talk of internationalization, of course, money is required, but then two things. One is that there are many, many philanthropic organizations who can be funding these travels. So we have to be in touch with these organizations. There are many foundations who are supporting these type of partnerships. But the corona has also taught us that we can do internationalization and collaborations at a much, much lesser price. Many online collaborations can be there. Many online teachers can be there. For example, today, if we want a foreign teacher to be teaching, talking to our students or giving a lecture to our students, now it is very easy online. Earlier also it was possible, but then that was not the way of life. But now online lectures are becoming a way of life. So I think if we use technology, we can promote internationalization in a bigger way, in a much, much cost-effective manner.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mittal, for that. That raises another very important question, which is the fact that historically, the way Western societies, particularly developed countries, have promoted internationalization is from the standpoint of how they can bring in international students from the developing countries, which is also a source of revenue. We are all familiar with the fact that Australia, for example, the international students contribute to the second largest contributor to the Australian GDP after mining. The same is true with the United States, which is not necessarily the same type of financial contribution, but quite significantly, they have international students who are fee-paying international students to a large extent. Now, in that context, what can India do, or let's say developing countries do, particularly in South Asia and Africa, which can also possibly create international hub of learning to attract students from around the world?
See, you're very right, Dr. Raj Kumar, because in India, if we estimate the amount of money which our students who are going abroad are spending on international education, it is almost equal to the entire education budget of the country. So because something like 800,000 to 1 million people go every year abroad, so they are spending a lot of money and a lot of foreign exchange we are losing in the process. So therefore, India is also taking many steps to attract foreign students to India. And one thing which India is lacking is, of course, quality of education is one thing which we have to take care of, including the infrastructure and say administrative issues like visa rules and all. But then one thing which is very important is marketing of Indian higher education abroad as a affordable quality education destination, because Indian higher education is not as expensive as the education in say countries like US, Canada, UK, Europe. So our higher education is very cost effective. So it can be promoted as a affordable quality higher education destination for students from all over the world. And then there are many niche areas. For example, the International Yoga Day was given to the world by India. So there are especially for example, yoga is there, culture is there. There are many areas, Ayurveda is there, where India has a very strong hold. So only thing I think a country like India requires is marketing its higher education in a much better manner, so that the world knows that what we are good at, and the world recognizes India as a affordable quality higher education destination.
Well, thank you very much. There are lots of questions which have come, so I'm going to try to pick up a few. We have another 10 minutes or so. One of the persons who has been watching this summit has asked, how can universities re-energize and envision international student exchange and international collaborations in the time of the pandemic?
See, pandemic has impacted all sectors of life. Higher education is no exception, and internationalization is no exception. But at the same time, it has opened some very novel ways of internationalizing. So although the student mobility is impacted in last 1 or 2 years, many of the students who had even got admission in foreign universities, they are sort of deferring their admissions. So student mobility is impacted, faculty mobility is impacted, but at the very same time, there are online courses in the foreign universities, there are online student exchanges, there are online faculty exchanges and online research collaborations. So we have to see that, because pandemic is under nobody's control. So if it is under nobody's control, we have to see that how best we can make use of the situation. So I think if we use technology in a big way, we can do whatever possible of internationalization in a cost-effective and time-effective manner, even during the pandemic time. We should not be shutting our doors that now that we cannot go out, so we'll be sitting inside our rooms and doing nothing. We can do a lot through technology, thanks to technology, which is making the communication possible. This World Education Summit, which we are running right now, is sort of connecting 25 countries without anybody moving here and there. So 25 countries are connecting together. So connections are now easier than ever.
Well, thank you so much for that response, because one of the things the pandemic has taught us is to be innovative. And you're absolutely right. Not only there are 25 countries participating, but we have over 100 universities represented in this summit. Now, one of the things when it comes to, I want to stick with that theme that you have talked about, which is about how to internationalize the Indian university system and that could be a lot of lessons for other developing countries. Now, one of the challenges that has been brought to our attention time and again is that to what extent we have an ecosystem that favors international student and faculty mobility. When I say ecosystem, we are talking about the visa processes, the safety and security and well-being of both students and scholars, the ease of travel, and also the procedures and process that are available for students and international scholars to live and work. Are these bottlenecks and challenges that we face today, which has, let's say, inhibited the ability of Indian universities to internationalize on these counts?
Very rightly said, Dr. Raj Kumar. And to be very frank, the ecosystem was not very friendly so far. And the result is this 46,000 coming to India and 1 million going out of the country. That is the result of having not a very good ecosystem. That is where I mentioned that the national education policy for the first time has given a lot of impetus to internationalization of higher education. And they are talking that, yes, it should be promoted in a big way. Therefore, when it was recommending about, say, 100 foreign universities in India or Indian universities going abroad and establishing their campuses abroad, or when it talked about joint degrees or, say, dual degrees or twinning programs and even transfer of credits from foreign universities, Indian universities, it was always keeping in mind that a robust ecosystem will be created to sort of accomplish all these recommendations, to implement all these recommendations. Therefore, not only the visa and all these administrative issues which are to be taken care of, we also have to take care of the academic calendar. We have to internationalize our curriculum, because our curriculum, if it is too Indian centric, maybe many students will not come. We have to, of course, ease out the visa regulation. We have to be appointing the foreign faculty. We have to be admitting the foreign students. There has to be a flexibility in terms of multiple entry and multiple exit. We have to be multidisciplinary. So many areas we have to look into when we want to promote internationalization. So it is not only one thing, but multiple ways in which we have to do it. And unless that is done, of course, I mean, we cannot be even thinking of implementing the recommendations. We cannot be thinking of promoting internationalization. And the biggest would be creating enabling infrastructure in the universities in terms of good classrooms, in terms of, say, good international hostels, and also an environment where the foreign students and the Indian students can coexist in a peaceful manner, in a friendly manner. So that ecosystem is required in all walks of life, including the ambience in a university. So, but I'm sure now that our universities are wanting to do internationalization in a big way, they will be working overtime to create this type of an ecosystem.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mittal. That was a very, I would say, compelling response, because these challenges are confronting the Indian education system, and there is now an aspiration for Indian universities to, let's say, embrace these opportunities. Now, let me move beyond the student mobility aspect of internationalization and go to what the faculty aspirations. To what extent, for example, now we know that some of the world's best scholarships and fellowships have enabled Indian research scholars to spend different parts of their time abroad. The one which is most well known is the Fulbright scholarship, but there are scholarships and such as the Max Planck Fellowship and many others which has brought in researchers from around the world into, let's say, United States for Fulbright scholarship, Max Planck Fellowship being hosted in German institutions. So my question is that these philanthropic organizations and endowed organizations have thought it appropriate to bring together people from around the world and share ideas and research. Is it time for Indian philanthropists as well as Indian organizations to create such opportunities that will bring together people from around the world to spend time in India?
Of course, the answer can be nothing but yes. But apart from Indian philanthropists, I also feel that the international philanthropists, sometime back, we held a webinar in AIU on international philanthropy. And one question which was raised about was equity in the international philanthropic funding. See, what happens is that all the international philanthropists, they are funding the universities which are already rich universities, where there are already many, many fellowships. So it is time to sort of do some branding for the Indian universities and to go to international philanthropists also and tell them that our universities also need some of your money to sort of coexist with other universities and to promote India as a say affordable quality education destination. And of course, Indian philanthropists, if they are ready to contribute, that must be explored. But then we do need to do a lot of work in this area, and not only the philanthropist, even the government funding has to increase. And of course, the national education policy sort of has committed that 6% of GDP will go to education. So if 6% of GDP comes to education, I'm sure the funding will be higher. And with this higher funding, we can institute many, many fellowships, scholarships, and attract many of the foreign students to India. And I myself have been a beneficiary of Fulbright scholarship. Therefore, I know that these scholarships help a lot. Therefore, India should be promoting this concept and exploring many, many possibilities, including international philanthropists, Indian philanthropists, and the government of India.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mittal. I know that we have just a few minutes left. One of the questions that has come again and again is that to what extent international rankings and international benchmarking of institutions can propel the aspiration of Indian universities to internationalize. We know for sure that there is a certain percentage of the methodology of both Times and QS rankings does recognize the role of international faculty and international students. But beyond those two percentages, it is also true that when Indian scholars collaborate and partner with international researchers and publish, their ability to get that work being cited internationally also contributes to the kind of ranking as well. So to what extent that becomes important in this context of promoting internationalization?
See, what happens is that when any university in the world wants to collaborate with any other university, they first go to the international rankings and see that where this university is placed in terms of international rankings. And when they say that the Indian universities are not there, so that works as a bit of a deterrent towards moving ahead for the collaboration. So that does sort of hamper the chances of Indian universities to collaborate. But again, I will say that the rankings, I was talking about the whiteness of the rankings, that the rankings are so designed that they sort of promote countries which are European countries, USA countries, because some aspects which we are good at, they are not at all being sort of looked into. And also because India is a large country, diverse country, multilingual country, a lot of our research happens in regional languages, that again, that research is not taken into account. And largely Indian universities are not very good in marketing. Therefore, our branding is also not there. So we lose a lot on the reputation score, because the foreign countries, they do not know about Indian university. So that is some setback we have, but rankings of course play an important role. And in India, therefore, we have our own ranking called National Institution Ranking Framework. So now many universities, foreign universities, are looking into NIRF rankings to see whether the university is good or not. They're looking into accreditation ratings, that whether our universities are good or not. And then I told you about the collaboration portal which we are building to tell the world that what we are good at in which university. So once they know that which university is good in which area, maybe it will be easier for them to collaborate.
Well, that's excellent. Let's now take the last question, and this is about something that becomes important in the context of the national education policy. To what extent India can become a global hub of higher education? To what extent not only students coming here and spending short periods of time from around the world, but also India becomes an aspiration for international students? One of the remarkable things about internationalization in the data related to internationalization is that the last decade has seen a significant number of inward mobility of international students into China, South Korea, Taipei, of course, Japan. And we have not seen that type of situation in India. So what could possibly be a sort of a catalyst in the form of an NEP that can enable India becoming a global destination for higher education for students?
Let me remind you, Dr. Raj Kumar, that India had Nalanda, which was established in 4th century BC. And in 7th century AD, Nalanda had 10,000 students and 2,000 teachers, and they were from mostly foreign countries like China, Indonesia, Korea, Japan, Persia, Turkey. So when at that point of time, India could be an international hub for education, why are we not able to become an international hub right now? So I think we have lost the way somewhere in between. So we have to take that path again, and India will definitely, and this NEP which you are talking about is paving that way. And it is creating that path on which we will travel. And again, once again, India will regain its lost glory and will be an international hub for affordable quality higher education. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Mittal, for not only delivering a fascinating address, but also very patiently and in a very candid manner responding to various questions. I also want to thank all the audience, members of the audience who have participated in this discussion. I also want to thank and appreciate the keynote address delivered by Professor Joanna Newman. We have now come to the end of this keynote address session. In another, say, 18 minutes or so, we will be starting the next thematic session entitled Beyond the Hallowed Always, University Social Responsibility for Socio-Economic and Environmental Reforms. Till then, I'll see you shortly. Thank you.